Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Professor James Mitchell, a man we've talked about before on the channel, is widely regarded as the world's leading academic expert on the SNP. Now, he's been looking at the data, looking at the polling, looking at the feedback and so forth. And he says that Humza Yousaf is unlikely to survive the next election, general election that is. Now, whether that is in May, which is likely, or the backstop date of October next year, who knows? But either way, he says Humza Yousaf will be gone by then. I think Professor Mitchell is being very generous myself. I think that with the party conference coming up in a few days' time, Humza Yousaf is unlikely to survive to the end of conference. I think by Christmas, the SNP will have a new leader. He's proved himself to be divisive, to be very stupid, and to be totally incapable of leadership. Indeed, his whole career has been one of failure. He failed in health, he failed in justice, and he's failed as First Minister. And I think with this conference, it could be his final failure in a non-illustrious career of fails. So let's see what he's going to fail at for the last time as we examine why Professor Mitchell says that this man won't survive the next election. Here goes. So Humza Yousaf won't survive the next general election as SNP leader as he faces angry confrontations at conference. Well, if you look what's going on right now and the things he's saying and the people he's backing, it's not surprising. He's alienating just about everyone in his own party. The vast majority of them don't want him aligning with the Greens, for example, and yet there he is aligning with the Greens, standing, of course, by Maggie Chapman. This is not a popular view. But on top of that, of course, these backbenchers are looking at him and thinking, I'm not going to have a job anymore. You're destroying my career. You're destroying my chances. You're destroying everything I've worked for. Because the man is an utter moron, isn't he? Anyway, the First Minister is facing a tough first conference, and I will also say last conference, as SNP leader, as he is coming off a thumping defeat in Rutherglen and Hamilton West. With one expert, this will be James Mitchell, warning that time could be up for his reign if the general election goes similarly. I don't honestly think he'll make it to the general election. Anyway, a leading expert on the SNP has claimed Humza Yousaf will not survive the next general election amid the growing unrest within the party. Professor James Mitchell also highlighted that the First Minister will be forced to face angry supporters at his first conference as leader. Mr Yousaf has struggled to stamp any sort of authority on his party since taking over from Nicola Sturgeon, with support in the polls flatlining. They're not flatlining, they're failing, they're falling, they're dropping like a stone. His support is draining away, evaporating. People have had enough. He also suffered an absolute thrashing at the Rutherglen and Hamilton West by-election, despite him being the face of campaigning for Katie Loudon. And to be honest, it's not a face you want, is it? The face of failure. It is a zombie party led by a zombie leader. He's dead, but he doesn't know he's dead, basically. The SNP are being wiped out at every opportunity, and it's nice to see. The perfect storm will mean that the SNP conference on Sunday may prove to be a testing one for the First Minister, with his controversial Skexit strategy also due to be debated on the first day. If it fails to pass, it will mean another leadership failure for the continuity candidate. And Mr Mitchell, who is the world's foremost expert on nationalists and is Professor of Public Policy at Edinburgh University, believes this could be the beginning of the end for Mr Yousaf. He told the Financial Times that the Rutherglen loss meant it was likely he'd be confronted by a lot of angry people at the conference. Now, we know that there will be a lot of angry people there. We know there's going to be the likes of Fergus Ewing, of Kate Forbes, and that's not just two people, of course. They represent like a wing of the party, and they are the sort of unelected leaders of a more moderate side of the SNP, and they will not put up with what's going on in what they like to consider their party. There's going to be calls for the Greens to be thrown out of government. He won't do that. He's backed them. He continues to back them. He stands by that loathsome creature, Maggie Chapman. That alone, I think, will cause a lot of unrest within the party. But on top of that, he does not have any authority. You only have to look at the way Mary Black stabs her feet and demands this and demands that, and she's given into. She gives the leadership an ultimatum, and they crumble. No leader should ever put up with an ultimatum. And that is how he is just a weak man. Basically over-promoted, isn't he? Anyway, Professor Mitchell added, weak authority is beginning to drain away. He's in trouble, and I don't think he'll survive the next general election. That's assuming he gets there, of course. With polls pointing to a potential drubbing at the next Westminster vote, the SNP leader could have one of the shortest reigns in charge. But Mr Yousaf dismissed any speculation about his leadership amid an ongoing civil war and huge fractures appearing within the party. He's failed to arrest the slump in the polls and has yet to impress Scots with his policies. There's Mitchell. Now, the problem with him is he's an utter failure. He's failed at every single thing he's done, and every policy he's tried to get through has failed to happen because he lacks any kind of intelligence. He won't listen to experts. He aligns himself with extremists. And so, of course, everything he does is going to fail. And if he did ever manage to get things through, what he gets through is obnoxiously bad and rejected by the people. He doesn't understand anything. He's got no political nous at all. Anyway, he claimed that he would be the man to lead the SNP into Holyrood election due in 2026. He said, I've never paid much attention to those who've written me off. The focus has to be on the fact that for some people in Scotland, and I will say I'll feel unfairly, there is a credibility issue that some people have for the SNP and the Scottish Government. He says, my concentration has to be on making sure the party delivers. And if we deliver, it will be seen as credible. And if we're seen as credible, people will continue to support us. And that's the problem, Mr Yousaf. You're not seen as credible. You're seen as a moron. You're seen as unflinching, as uncaring, as inhumane. Your previous leader of the SNP was a psychopath, allegedly. She certainly had those tendencies, it seems. You, not so much a psychopath, but you don't understand anything. You're too stupid. And that's the problem. You've got a party led by a moron. Experts believe the reason voters have deserted the SNP is because of their various policy failures while in power. Now, you've got to say as well, because they've not had any ideas of their own, I mean, literally their ideas cupboard is bare, they've gone to the Greens and said, give us some ideas, and the Greens have given them loads of ideas. It's like a wet dream for the Greens, isn't it? Oh, God, we can get this out. Let's get this. Oh, let's do that. Oh, my God, we never thought we'd get the chance to do this one. And they keep pushing these ideas. And the SNP, so bereft of these ideas, have gone, yeah, we'll take that, we'll do that. Oh, we'll make that one out. And every idea that they've been given has been an extremist idea. And that is why they're all failing. It's almost as though the lunatics are running the asylum. And of course they are. And they're all doing it under the guise of Humza Yousaf. No leader should be looking at another party and thinking, yeah, those ideas are great, unless they are actually okay. But with the Greens and their extreme ideas, you know everything is going to fail. They don't think anything through. Anyway, the NHS is lurching from crisis to crisis. Islanders have unreliable ferries and councils being cut to the bones. Voters also care less about independence due to no referendum being on the horizon. Mr Yousaf rejected this notion as he said the top three issues for people are the cost of living crisis, the NHS and public services and the economy. He says, and of course for me, independence is linked to all three. And yet strangely, in reality, no it bloody well isn't. And that's his problem. He sees everything through the mantle of independence rather than just getting on with the job. And that is why everything fails. Every single policy is a failure because it can only ever be tackled through independence. And of course it isn't the case. It clearly isn't. Emily Gray, Scotland Managing Director of Ipsos, said the SNP risked handling the initiative to Labour on issues that mattered most to voters. I think it's already gone. I think it's already too late. I don't think even changing leadership now You can't, what's it the saying? You can't change horse mid-race. You've already lost. It's basically there. You've got to accept it. Anyway, she said it'll be quite concerning for the SNP if Labour starts to be seen by voters as the party that is best placed to tackle the cost of living crisis, because we know that's what is very important for people. It is. Ultimately, money always is the case. Economics always trumps politics. And at the end of the day, people want money. They don't want nice, shiny policies. And there he is, the man destined to fail, about to embark on his first and probably last conference as leader. Man, hopefully he'll be gone by Christmas. And the sooner he's gone and takes his hateful policies with him, the better. Coming up. Now, there are some who say that he needs to stay. The longer he stays as leader of the SNP, the more likely it is for the SNP to be out of government, next opportunity. And I agree. I agree to a point. However, his leadership is in itself so damaging that you need someone who's not insane. Someone who doesn't hate people. Because that's all that man has got inside him. His whole being is that of hate. He hates the English. He hates white people. He hates Jews. He hates everything that's decent. He's willing to stand by that loathsome creature, Maggie Chapman, and yet he will not stand up for the people of Scotland. It's time for him to go, and I'm hoping that at the SNP conference this week, enough people will get up and explain to him that his time has come and he must go, and they put in a new leadership. And it's probably going to be Kate Forbes and Fergus Ewing. They may not be brilliant, they're still the SNP after all, but they are at least sane. Anyway, I shall stop there. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this has been illuminating for you. And until next time, stay safe, stay well. And as we move towards the back end of the week and the beginning of the conference of the SNP, we look forward to hopefully a regime change in Scotland. Thank you and goodbye.